Fellow dragon lovers, welcome back! Today we're looking at my Ganax, the Feywild Visitor pEDH Commander deck, which you can build for around 20 bucks if you don't mind condition or language. Many of these cards you probably have lying around, and since it's so cheap, you might want to add the one or the other favorite of your cards in your collection to pimp this deck out even more. And it's time for another installment of Think Outside the Deck Box. Let's look at Ganax and Feywild Visitor for a moment. Here we have Ganax and Astral Hunter for 5. You get a 3/4 flying Ganax who, when he enters or another dragon, you get a treasure token, even untapped, onto the battlefield. And Feywild Visitor, which is the card we are pairing it with, since our commander has choose the background, and it is a background. We have a 3 mana enchantment, which is also your commander, and commander creatures, so as long as Ganax is on the battlefield, have, whenever one or more non-token creatures deal combat damage to any player, you create a 1/1 flying blue faerie dragon token onto the battlefield. And it does look cute now, doesn't it? It's so happy. And the idea of this deck is to sneak as much damage as possible to each of your opponents and get a bonus faerie dragon onto the battlefield, up to 3 if you have 3 opponents, and also 3 treasures, since the Feywild Visitor also triggers Ganax whenever it creates a dragon, and you get a whole bunch of mana. And in blue-red, that is a nice thing actually to happen. So I tried to split the deck into different piles. We have a land, a protection, a damage pile, as well as an unblockable pile, a removal, a card draw, and a ramp pile. And we're gonna look at this side for a sec first, so you see how the deck works, and then we're gonna look at the intricacies of the ramp, removal, and card draw pile, how these cards fit into the rest of the deck. So let's at first look at the sneaky creatures here. We have a whole bunch of creatures that we just want to be sure can go through, and we're starting out with Gingerbrute. For 1 you get a hasty creature, a 1/1, can just attack at the very first turn, which is nice, and it can make itself unblockable pretty much for 1 mana if your opponents don't have creatures with haste, and the second effect we mostly won't use. Next up, a strictly better in the sense that it is always unblockable creature here. For 1 mana you get a 1/1 who cannot be blocked. Next up, Slitherblade, same idea here, just a different creature type, and has 2 toughness, interestingly enough. Triton Shorestalker as well, 1 mana unblockable, and the idea is you have Ganax out, you attack, you have an unblockable creature, and you have the Feywild Visitor as well, and you create a dragon and a treasure when you deal 1 damage with 1 of these creatures to one of your opponents. If you have 3 opponents, 3 of these creatures get 3 dragons, get 3 treasures, and man, we are cooking, you know, like this is a massive amount of dragons created and tokens and treasures, and then you just continue from there on, you know. So Escape Artist starts out with 2 mana, 1/1 unblockable, but it can actually save itself, so maybe there is a board wipe coming which you cannot stop. You can at least save this one, so that one I liked. Metathran Soldier for 2 mana unblockable, 1/1. The Grey Harbor Merfolk for 2 mana, a 0/3 unblockable, and as long as you have your commander out, it can deal damage. Until then, it's a solid blocker, I suppose. Fogwalker is pretty much unblockable. It has Skulk, so not a bigger creature can block it. If your opponent has a 1/1, it is blockable, but then again, you could tap it and it doesn't untap next turn, so you will always find a possible player to get through with Fogwalker, I suppose. Thalicos Seer I really like because it has Shadow.
The Shadow? The Shadow? The Shadow.
Now, shadow creatures are only blockable by shadow creatures, and it only can block shadow creatures. So if they don't have shadow, they are unblockable. And again, it's a 1/1 creature, and when it leaves the battlefield, you even draw a card. So that's nice. If your opponent actually removes this one, you get some card back. The Sentry also has shadow, is a 1/2 for 2. We have a Drifter Ildal, which is a 1 mana 2/1 and has Shadow, but it has an upkeep cost of always having to be paid with 1 mana. But we have mana on the battlefield normally. We will have enough treasures to pay the Drifter Eldel every turn, so we don't really mind. And whenever he actually deals damage, he pays for himself by getting a dragon and getting a treasure onto the battlefield for the next turn to be paid again. So why not? 1 mana, solid creature, and even deals 2 damage. Looter Ilkor for 2 mana. It has the looting effect and also Shadow. You get the idea of the unblockable creatures now for 5 mana, a 3/1, but it has Suspend, so in 2 turns you actually get the Infiltrator Ilkor with Shadow out if you just wait a little bit. And lastly, the Azure Fleet Admiral. For 4 you get a 3/3, which also gives you, the players, the Monarch minigame onto the battlefield, and since you're always attacking everyone, even if one of the opponents steals the crown from you, you will always have an unblockable creature to get the crown back and draw a bonus card at the end of turn. And he also is unblockable by the player who actually is the Monarch, so it is kind of unblockable if you give the crown away. So this is the general gist of the deck. Have unblockables, get through, get dragons, get treasures, attack with dragons obviously, and use the treasures to cast all the other stuff that you have on the battlefield. So paying big spells also really isn't a problem. Tavern Brawler, for 3 mana we have another background, which lets us at the beginning of the upkeep exile a card from the library, and our commander gets +X+O equal to the revealed mana cost. So if we, for example, reveal this one, he gets 4 power, so 7 power then, and can use that by attacking, obviously. It has evasion by flying, so probably you will find a player who you can even hit with your commander for commander damage. And then you're even allowed to play the card you just exiled, so this is also even card advantage. So I like this one. You might want to be careful with counterspells that you exile up there, but I still like this card, and there are enough counterspells in this deck, so I don't think it's a big problem. Tiamat's Fanatics I also like, because it's a 5 mana 4/3 haste Myriad Dragon, and you know what? If you get Myriad Dragons and you copy it for each opponent, you get equal amounts of treasure tokens onto the battlefield as well, so that can be quite brutal, and you don't mind if your created tokens die. Just make sure that the Tiamat's Fanatics is safe when attacking. Makeshift Munitions I really like. For 2 mana you can have this enchantment that you pay 1 mana and sacrifice an artifact or creature to deal 1 damage to any target. This can also be counted towards removal, but what I also really like is the artwork here of the statue that is having the eyes hidden by the monkey here. So either you put in one of your dragons and just pay a mana or a treasure to just fling one of your dragons, or what I also really like, if you have too many treasures, just put in 2 treasures, one to pay the makeshift munitions and one to throw the treasure into someone's face. So you have many options here, and I think this card can deal up to 3 damage every turn if you want to use all the 3 treasures and all the 3 dragons to just hit important creatures that your opponents have, or just start dealing damage directly to take out single players. Next up, Orcish Oriflamme, which increases the power of attacking creatures, so your dragons are now 2/1s instead of 1/1s, and any other of your unblockables are also bigger. Impact Tremors deals up to 3 damage every turn with the dragons that enter the battlefield, so that's nice, steady damage. This one does the same in form of a creature, and even has Unearth if it actually gets removed, so you have another turn for more damage. And Reckless Fireweaver deals damage for every treasure that you actually create, and the Ingenious Artillerist also does the same, so both of them deal damage when you create treasures with Ganax. Now, let's quickly look at the protection pile before we hit into the removal, card draw, and ramp pile, and keep in mind these will be important later on. The latter 3. Eel Umbra, for 2 mana it has Flash and gives a creature +1/+1, solid, and it has Totem Armor. So if a creature is gonna be removed, for example Ganax, which is quite important in your deck, you can flash it and protect your commander from being destroyed or having dealt lethal damage. So quite important, but maybe you have another important creature that you just want to save, maybe one of the Fire Weavers or the like. You have a Mizzium skin, which can actually protect your whole team if someone targets your whole team, or just simply for 1 mana protects one of your creatures, mostly your commander. Teferi's Time Twist blinks a creature and or any permanent actually, and if it is a creature, it gets a additional +1/+1 counter when it enters back onto the battlefield. And keep in mind, if you blink your commander, it gives your treasure back, so this actually costs 1 less if you want to see it like that. Now onwards to the removal pile. We're playing quite a bunch of removals, I think up to 18 actually, which I would count towards that. So let's look what's in here. Sigil of Sleep is one of the important cards paired with, for example, a card like Reckless Fireweaver. So whenever one of the treasures enters, we are able to deal 1 damage to every opponent, and then with Sigil of Sleep enchanted onto the Reckless Fireweaver, we can actually bounce a creature. And since we deal 1 damage to each opponent, we can bounce up to 3 creatures with let's say one instance of treasure's creation. Similarly, if you have the Molten Gatekeeper, now whenever dragons enter, you can bounce creatures or generally any of the unblockable creatures in your deck. Next up, a Mistblade Shinobi. We have a whole bunch of unblockers, and when any of these actually get through, we can switch them out with Mistblade Shinobi, get one of our unblockers, let's say this one for example, back to our hand, and then Mistblade Shinobi is actually the unblocked creature, and we are able to bounce a creature. It's just solid. I found solid inclusion and a fun thing to do in the meantime. Sword Coast Serpent. We also play a bunch of common dragons. It is a pauper deck. As I said, you can upgrade it anytime if you want, which is the beauty of this deck, but I also like the challenge to see how far I can get a deck in pauper going, and in this case a dragon deck. So it has adventure. For 2 we can bounce a creature, and then we may play it for 7 later, and we have enough mana creation with our commander, and it actually cannot be blocked if I cast a non-creature spell at a certain turn. And it's a 6/6, so solid dragon, I'd say. Next up, Cleansing Wildfire. We don't have much land removal, and I found this card nice because it also replaces itself, so it destroys a land, the opponent gets a basic back onto the battlefield tapped, and we draw a card. Why not get the Cradle out or whatever land bothers you? Some more creature removal. Frogify turns a creature into a Froggo with no abilities. Kasmina's Transmutation similarly, but actually no creature type. Interesting. Tamiyo's Completion can actually get rid of artifact creature or planeswalker, and has flash, and taps it, and doesn't untap, and loses all abilities. So that is quite something. Raven Form has Foretell, but also for just 3 mana we can exile a artifact or creature, and the opponent gets a 1/1 birdie. Again, we have enough mana with all the treasures we create. We don't need Foretell, but we can use Foretell if we want to. Some board wipe. Card Clan Shaman. For 1 you have a 1/1 which can just snack your treasures to deal 1 damage to each creature without flying. So either we have a really bad hand and we just have, let's say, 1 or 2 of the unblockables out, and your opponent has a big token deck. Let's just wipe the board, throw in like 1 or 2 treasures, and the board is dead. This one will go too, but let's hope you have some dragons out, right? Or the other idea is you already have like 10 dragons. Why not wipe the whole board by just throwing like 10 treasures, kill everyone, and you have your dragons in, and you just start destroying your opponents with your dragon faerie army. Another board wipe is Breath Weapon, which I also really like because it deals 2 damage to each non-dragon creatures. All your dragons will survive, and most of your opponent's smaller creature will just go and are dead. Swirly Sandstorm similarly deals 5 damage to each creature without flying, as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. I find it a very solid board wipe in Pauper if you don't play Pauper, but want to build this deck. Put in a Blasphemous Act, obviously. But what I like about it though is that it actually only kills the non-flyers. So maybe think about it. Abjure, I like that I can include this counterspell now. For 1 mana we counter a spell, but we have to sack a blue permanent. Now these fairies are blue. and they're expendable. I mean, they're cute, but you have enough, and you can just counter a spell now for 1 any spell by sacking a dragon. Turn aside, it counters a spell that targets any permanent. Most of the time people want to get rid of any of our commanders, of either of them, so we have turn aside. We have Dispel to counter an instant. We have Counterspell, the classic one, obviously. We play Negate to counter non-creature spells. We have a whole bunch of counters just to be sure that we can get our stuff through, that we want to get through, and protect the stuff we want to protect, and just be sure that we can move on with our plan. Keep Safe I also like, because it counters a spell that targets a permanent, and it even replaces itself. So these counter spells are nice. Maybe you want to even include more counter spells that draw you cards back, because you have enough mana to do that. So maybe like a 4 mana counter spell that draws your card back is even a better inclusion than just simply a negate. I'd have to test this deck a little more to see if the amount of treasures is always enough. Disruption Protocol I like, because we just simply tap a treasure and we have a counter spell again for just 2 mana. And then I have Rewind, which lets us even untap lands and therefore costs nothing. Next up, Card Draw. The Ninja of Deep Hours is another one that replaces one of the unblockers who got through, and then we can bounce them back. We even get the effect of the Fogwalker here again, and we draw a card if the ninja deals damage. So maybe there is a player that you can hit multiple times because they're not playing a creature heavy deck. We shall see. Goggles of Night is a nice equipment that repeatedly scries and draws you a card with your unblockables. You have Preordain just to be able to plan our next moves. You could also put in Ponder if we want to. They just didn't have any Ponder left over from all the decks that I built in the recent weeks and months. Thoughtcast I find quite fitting, since we have so many treasures created, and this will just cost much less most of the time, just simply a blue to draw 2 cards. Similarly, the Winged Words only costs 2 to draw 2 cards, since we have so many flying dragons in this deck. Muldrifter draws 2 cards for 3 most of the time. If we're bored, we can also put in a 2/2 flyer for 5. Deep Analysis for 4 draws 2 cards, later on draws 2 cards for 2 mana and 3 life from our graveyard. Ophidian Eye is another one that I also play in my fake pirate deck, also with creatures like these, Reckless Fireweaver, so whenever we deal 1 damage by creating 1 treasure to each opponent, we can actually draw 3 cards with Ophidian Eye, so keep that in mind. Similarly, Gatekeeper again, and the Artillerist as well. We have Tandem Lookout, which actually does the same as Ophidian Eye, so again we can draw up to 3 cards whenever the soulbound creature deals damage. We have a Lorien Reveal, which many times will be used at the beginning of the game to just filter our lands, but later on, why not pay 5, since we have so many treasures to draw 3 cards, why not? Keep Watch is a beautiful card in Pauper Commander, which will draw us a card for each attacking creature. Could be used on an opponent's turn, but I mean, we're playing kind of an aggro deck here, so if we have like 3 or 4 creatures attacking each turn, maybe even 10 creatures later on, why not draw 10 cards for 3 mana, you know? At instant speed, beautiful card. Distant Melody will also draw us a whole bunch of cards, since we have so many dragon tokens out, including our commander, so just drawing like 7 cards seems quite reasonable with this card. Rush of Knowledge, also for 5, most of the time will just simply draw us 5 cards, since our commander costs 5. We also have some more expensive dragons that you have seen earlier on. Where was it? Ah, there. The Sword Coast Serpent, so we could draw up to 7 cards with this deck. So that's nice. I wouldn't count on it to try to draw these 7, but 5 should be easily possible with the commander out. Flood of Recollection is simply a Joker card. Any instant or sorcery card in your graveyard can be replaced by the Flood of Recollection. Now, let's quickly look at the ramp and the mana base. To finish out this video, we have Reckless Barbarian, who's also a dragon, so will give us a token here, a treasure token, and can be later sacked to add us the 2 mana back that we spent on him. Wayfarer's Bauble should be known to all, fetches you a land. Izzet Signet gives you 2 mana for 1. Then we have Arcane Signet with a cute artwork. a Thought Vessel for no maximum hand size, Felwar Stone for mana that your opponents create, Mind Stone to later draw a card probably, so this one we might actually sacrifice in this deck, Sky Diamond and Fire Diamond for tapped mana, and Commander Sphere here to actually sack later on to draw another card, and the Elephant here from Lord of the Rings to most of the time Mountain Cycle, but maybe later on we also want to use to deal even more damage and have a big 6/4 Trampler. Now stay here for a sec because the land pile is quite important, and I hope you enjoyed this video because many lands here are quite unique that I put in here. So we have the Saprazan Scary as well as the Sandstone Needle, which both get us 2 times 2 mana when we tap them. And we want to get our commander out as fast as possible to get our treasure engine going. So this is why we don't really mind having to sack them in the second turn that we use them. So this is why I included those, and they're quite powerful in decks like these. Mystic Sanctuary to put instant or sorceries back on top of our library. If there is anything interesting that is slumbering in our graveyard, we can get it back again. Next up we have the Surgical Bay and the Autonomous Furnace. Both of them enter tapped, give us a mana of the respective color, but we can later sack them to draw a card, so these can also replace themselves, which I find nice. These 3 actually lands are duals, so they all enter tapped, and you choose the other color that is missing here to have a couple more dual lands. In Pauper Commander you have the Molten Tributary and the Volatile Fjord. Both of them are fetchable dual lands, and the Izzet Boiler works to maybe get back a cycling land from your play, or the Mystic Sanctuary that we saw earlier back to your hand to get another trigger. We have the Silverbluff Bridge, which is indestructible and is a dual land. The 2 cycling lands that I teased earlier, which we can just cycle to draw a card. Ash Barrens to fix our mana, and Command Tower as a solid staple in Commander, and then Pauper Commander also allowed. And then we have these beautiful islands here. I think I'm playing 11 and 4 of these Strixhaven Mountains. And now I challenge you to also try out to build a Pauper Commander deck, because at any point you can always upgrade it if you don't like it. But there are actually many Pauper Commander decks on my channel, and many of them are so powerful that in casual pots you can still dominate the table. I'm really interested what you think about this Pauper Dragon deck. If you like it, let me know in the comments. Help this channel out by watching another video. Have a good one, and now I should start sleeving up this deck now, shouldn't I? Bye bye.